Aarav, Nandini, Ria, and Karan seemed like any ordinary Indian family living in the United States, but behind their smiles and social media posts lay secrets that would shock a nation. Because one husband's plan to secure wealth would turn a rainy night into a deadly trap, leaving the rest scrambling to uncover the truth. Please subscribe for daily new update of crime story and watch till end. Aarav Malhotra and his wife Nandini Malhotra arrived in the United States with hope filling every part of their lives. They had left behind familiar streets, close relatives, and the comfort of speaking their own language everywhere they went. For them, America was a place where hard work promised rewards and where the future felt open and bright. Aarav believed this move would turn him into a successful man, someone others would admire. Nandini believed it would give them stability, safety, and a peaceful life together. They settled in a quiet suburb where houses looked similar and streets stayed silent after sunset. Aarav quickly found a job in a technology company, working long hours to prove his worth. Nandini stayed home at first, focusing on arranging their house and adjusting to a new culture. She spent her days learning small routines, like shopping in large stores, understanding unfamiliar systems, and managing life without nearby family. Though she missed India deeply, she trusted Aarav's vision and never complained. To neighbors and co-workers, the couple appeared ideal. Aarav was polite, ambitious, and disciplined. Nandini was gentle, reserved, and supportive. They attended community events, greeted others with warm smiles, and avoided conflict. Social media posts showed vacations, celebrations, and moments that suggested happiness. No one suspected that this perfect image was carefully maintained, hiding silent struggles that were growing stronger each day. Behind closed doors, the pressure of a new country slowly changed Aarav. The cost of living shocked him. Bills arrived constantly, and expectations at work never seemed to end. He felt trapped between the image of success he wanted to show and the fear of failure he carried inside. Aarav believed that admitting weakness would destroy his identity. Instead of sharing his worries, he kept everything hidden. Nandini noticed changes, but did not understand their cause. Aarav became distant and distracted. He spent more time on his phone and laptop, often late into the night. His moods shifted without warning, and his patience grew thin. Still, Nandini blamed the stress of work and immigration. She reminded herself that sacrifices were normal in the early years of a new life. What neither neighbors nor relatives knew was that this move had placed the couple on uneven ground. Aarav's dreams had turned into expectations he could not meet easily. Nandini's trust had become complete dependence. Their relationship, once balanced, now leaned heavily in one direction. The silence between them grew deeper, filled with thoughts that were never spoken aloud. This new life, which once symbolized opportunity, quietly became the setting for something far darker. The calm streets, the clean houses, and the feeling of safety masked a growing storm. The first chapter of their American dream did not end with celebration. Instead, it marked the beginning of a slow and hidden descent, where ambition and fear started shaping choices that would later shock everyone who believed they knew the Malhotras. As months passed, the pressure Aarav carried began to grow heavier. His job looked impressive from the outside, but the reality was exhausting. Long hours, constant deadlines, and fear of being replaced followed him every day. Promotions came slowly, while expenses increased quickly. Rent, insurance, car payments, and taxes drained his salary faster than he expected. Aarav had imagined success would come naturally in America, but instead he felt stuck, chasing a version of life that stayed just out of reach. Instead of asking for help or adjusting his lifestyle, Aarav chose secrecy. He started using credit cards to maintain appearances. At first, it was for small things, then for larger purchases. He told himself it was temporary and that future bonuses would fix everything. When the cards reached their limits, he took personal loans using online services that approved money within minutes. Each loan brought short relief, but added another layer of stress. His nights became restless, filled with calculations and fear. Nandini remained unaware of how serious the situation had become. She trusted Aarav completely and believed he was managing everything responsibly. She focused on saving money in small ways, cooking at home and avoiding unnecessary spending. She assumed their sacrifices would pay off soon. Aarav encouraged her trust, knowing that questions would only complicate things. The silence between them was no longer just emotional, it became strategic. During this time, Aarav's thinking began to change. Fear slowly turned into desperation. He started imagining solutions that once would have seemed impossible. While organizing paperwork, he noticed insurance brochures offered by his employer. Life insurance benefits stood out to him more than anything else. The numbers looked comforting, almost unreal. He told himself it was sensible planning for emergencies, nothing more. Over the following weeks, Aarav quietly arranged multiple life insurance policies in Nandini's name. Each policy listed him as the sole beneficiary. The process was simple, requiring basic medical checks and signatures. He justified it as protecting their future. On the surface, it looked like responsibility. Underneath, it marked a shift in his mindset. Money was no longer just a problem to solve, it became an obsession. At the same time, Aarav began emotionally disconnecting from Nandini. He stopped sharing daily details and avoided spending time together. Guilt surfaced occasionally, but he pushed it aside by focusing on numbers, deadlines, and imagined outcomes. The more trapped he felt, the more he convinced himself that extreme measures were acceptable. His thoughts became cold and practical, stripped of emotion. What made this phase dangerous was how normal everything appeared. Aarav still went to work, smiled at neighbors, and attended gatherings when required. Nandini continued her routines, unaware that her life had been reduced to figures on a screen. The foundation of their marriage, built on trust and shared dreams, quietly eroded without any visible cracks. This chapter of their lives was not marked by loud conflict or dramatic events. It unfolded in silence, through hidden documents, private decisions, and growing emotional distance. The pressure Aarav faced did not break him immediately. Instead, it slowly reshaped him into someone capable of seeing a solution where only tragedy existed. The idea did not arrive suddenly, it formed slowly. Shaped by late nights and endless searching, Aarav spent hours alone with his laptop, long after Nandini had gone to sleep. What began as innocent curiosity about accident statistics gradually turned into focused research. He searched for news articles about fatal car crashes, especially those ruled as unavoidable. Weather conditions, road design, vehicle defects, and distracted driving became keywords he returned to again and again. Each search fed a growing belief that accidents were common, messy, and rarely questioned. Aarav was careful. He never searched for anything extreme in one sitting. His browsing history looked scattered, almost random. Some nights he read about highway safety. Other nights he studied insurance claim timelines. He learned how investigators often relied on surface evidence when there were no witnesses. He discovered how many cases were closed within days if there was no sign of another vehicle involved. This knowledge gave him confidence, replacing fear with calculation. His attention soon narrowed to a specific scenario: a single-car accident on a poorly lit road, late at night, during bad weather. The more isolated the location, the better. He noted how rain could erase tire marks and how speed could explain most damage. He studied how airbags, seatbelts, and modern safety systems were interpreted after crashes. Instead of seeing danger, he saw opportunity. Each detail became part of a mental checklist. While Aarav's mind worked quietly, his behavior changed in subtle ways. He asked casual questions about Nandini's driving habits and preferred routes. He encouraged her to drive alone more often, offering excuses related to his work schedule. He paid close attention to her car, noticing sounds, warning lights, and service reminders. His concern appeared caring, but it was calculated. Aarav also began exploring locations during his commute. He memorized stretches of highway where lighting was poor and traffic thinned after certain hours. He noticed barriers, curves, and construction zones. These places stayed in his thoughts long after he passed them. To him, they were no longer roads, but potential outcomes. Despite these thoughts, moments of doubt still appeared. He sometimes felt uneasy watching Nandini go about her daily routines, unaware of the danger forming around her. These moments did not stop him. Instead, he justified his actions by blaming circumstances. He told himself that life had pushed him into a corner and that he had no other escape. Responsibility shifted away from him in his own mind. What made this phase especially disturbing was how ordinary life continued. Weekends passed with grocery shopping and routine chores. Friends saw nothing unusual. Nandini trusted him fully, never sensing the shift in his thoughts. The contrast between normal life and Aarav's hidden planning grew sharper with each passing day. By the end of this period, Aarav no longer viewed the idea as wrong or unthinkable. It had become a solution shaped by logic, not emotion. The plan was not yet complete, but the direction was clear. What once began as stress-driven curiosity had transformed into intent. The path forward no longer felt frightening to him. It felt inevitable. The evening began like any other, quiet and uneventful. Dark clouds gathered early, and steady rain soaked the roads, blurring streetlights and softening the sounds of traffic. Nandini left the house alone, planning a short drive that she had made many times before. Aarav watched her go with a calm expression, offering nothing more than a routine reminder to drive carefully. Inside, his thoughts were steady, almost silent, as if everything had already been decided long before this moment. The rain grew heavier as Nandini drove farther from the neighborhood. Water pooled along the edges of the highway, and visibility dropped with every passing mile. Cars thinned out, leaving long stretches of empty road. She slowed down, focused on staying within her lane, unaware that something was already wrong. The steering felt strange, slightly unresponsive, but not enough to cause immediate alarm. She assumed it was the rain or the uneven surface beneath her tires. Seconds later, the car reacted sharply. A sudden pull sent it drifting toward the side barrier. Nandini tried to correct the direction, but the vehicle did not respond as expected. The brakes failed to slow the car properly, and panic set in. In the chaos of flashing lights and pounding rain, control slipped away completely. The car struck the concrete barrier with violent force, metal folding inward as airbags deployed. The sound of the crash echoed briefly before being swallowed by the storm. Passing vehicles slowed, their headlights revealing twisted metal and shattered glass. Emergency services arrived quickly, responding to reports of a single-car accident in dangerous weather conditions. Paramedics worked efficiently, but the damage was severe. The scene told a familiar story of rain, speed, and loss of control. There were no signs of another vehicle, no witnesses who had seen the moments before impact. Aarav arrived later, summoned by authorities. He appeared shocked, his face pale and drained. He answered questions calmly, providing basic information without hesitation. His reactions seemed appropriate, even restrained. Officers noted his cooperation and saw no reason to doubt the initial assessment. The road conditions alone offered a convincing explanation. Investigators examined the site under poor conditions. Rain washed away details that might have raised questions. Tire marks were unclear, and debris scattered unpredictably. The vehicle itself showed damage consistent with a high-speed impact. Nothing obvious suggested interference. The conclusion formed quickly: a tragic accident caused by weather and loss of control. By the time the rain eased, the case was already moving toward closure. Reports were filed, evidence documented, and the wrecked car was towed away. Nandini's death was recorded as an unfortunate result of dangerous driving conditions. Aarav returned home alone that night, the house silent and unchanged. What no one realized was that this moment was not defined by chance. The storm, the empty road, and the failed systems had aligned too perfectly. The night of the crash was not chaos. It was the final step of a plan hidden beneath normal routines and quiet decisions. To the world, it was an accident. To Aarav, it was the outcome he had been waiting for. In the days following the crash, everything moved quickly. Paperwork, official calls, and formal procedures filled the space where grief was expected to live. Aarav followed every step without resistance. He signed documents, answered follow-up questions, and accepted condolences with quiet nods. His behavior matched what authorities and acquaintances assumed was shock. No one pressed him for emotion, and he did not offer any. The insurance companies responded faster than expected. Because the death had been ruled an accident, there were no complications. Forms were processed smoothly, and verification checks cleared without delay. Within weeks, large sums of money began arriving in Aarav's accounts. Each payment erased a portion of the financial burden that had haunted him for months. Debts disappeared one by one, replaced by a sense of control he had not felt in a long time. His lifestyle shifted subtly at first. Bills were paid early, Collection notices stopped arriving. He replaced the old car with a newer model, explaining that it was necessary for work. Soon after, he moved out of the modest house they once shared and into a better apartment closer to the city. He told others the change was too painful, that memories made it hard to stay. The explanation sounded reasonable, and no one questioned it. What stood out to a few people was the speed of his recovery. The sadness they expected never truly appeared. Aarav returned to work earlier than most thought appropriate. He attended meetings, focused on projects, and even discussed future plans. His productivity increased, and his supervisors praised his dedication. From the outside, it looked like a man coping by staying busy. From closer view, it felt disconnected. Personal belongings of Nandini were cleared away efficiently. Clothes were donated, items sold, and records closed. Aarav handled these tasks alone, without hesitation. He avoided places they once visited together and removed reminders from his daily life. Each action erased traces of the past, making room for a future that no longer included her. Meanwhile, whispers began quietly. A colleague mentioned how quickly Aarav had settled financial matters. A neighbor noticed that renovations and purchases happened too soon. These observations stayed private, shared only in passing conversations. There was no accusation, only confusion. The official story had no cracks, and without evidence, suspicion remained nothing more than discomfort. Aarav felt secure. The plan had worked better than he imagined. Money solved problems, silenced fears, and restored his confidence. He told himself that survival justified everything. The guilt he once feared never fully arrived. Instead, there was relief. For the first time since moving to the United States, he felt ahead rather than behind. What he did not consider was how sudden changes attract attention over time. While grief fades naturally, behavior leaves patterns. The ease with which Aarav stepped into a better life did not match the loss he claimed to carry. The world accepted his explanations, but memory has a way of resurfacing details when no one expects it. This period marked the height of Aarav's success. Debts were gone, stress lifted, and control restored. Yet beneath the surface of comfort and stability, something remained unresolved. The story everyone believed was complete, but its silence would not last forever. Time passed, and the case faded from public memory, becoming just another file stored in a digital archive. Accidents like Nandini's happened often, and most were never revisited. However, nearly a year later, a routine internal review quietly brought the crash back into focus. A traffic safety analyst was assigned to study closed cases involving modern vehicles, aiming to improve future road safety standards. Nandini's accident appeared on the list because her car model was equipped with advanced data recording systems. The analyst examined the vehicle's event data recorder, a system similar to a black box. This data had been collected earlier but never studied in depth because the case was considered straightforward. As the numbers appeared on the screen, something felt unusual. Just seconds before impact, the steering input showed a sharp and unnatural movement. It did not match normal human reaction patterns in rainy conditions. Even more concerning was the brake data. Pressure had been applied, but the response was delayed in a way that suggested mechanical failure rather than driver error. Curious, the analyst compared this data with hundreds of similar accidents. The differences became clearer. In most rain-related crashes, drivers either overcorrected gradually or braked too late. Nandini's car behaved differently, almost as if control had been partially taken away from the driver. This alone did not prove anything, but it raised enough concern to justify a deeper look. A secondary review of the crash site photos revealed more subtle details. Tire marks were faint, but their angle suggested the car had been pulled rather than drifted. At the time of the crash, rain had been blamed for poor visibility, but now the marks seemed inconsistent with that explanation. The analyst flagged the case and forwarded it to a senior investigator for further evaluation. The vehicle itself had already been salvaged, but maintenance records were still available. A review of service history showed a routine visit to a repair shop just days before the crash. That was not unusual on its own, but the visit was logged under Aarav's name, not Nandini's. Typically, she handled the car's maintenance. This small inconsistency stood out. Investigators quietly reopened the file without notifying Aarav. They wanted to avoid alerting anyone until they understood what they were dealing with. Mechanical experts were consulted, and based on the data, they concluded that the brake system showed signs of deliberate interference. It was not a manufacturing defect or wear and tear. Something had been altered intentionally. What once looked like a simple accident now felt carefully staged. Each new detail weakened the original conclusion. The weather had helped hide the truth, but technology preserved it. The case moved from traffic safety review to criminal investigation without any public announcement. Unaware of these developments, Aarav continued his life as usual, confident that the past was buried. He had no idea that a routine audit, driven by data and patience, had quietly reopened the door he believed was permanently closed. Once the investigators concluded that the crash might not have been accidental, everything shifted quickly. A criminal investigation began quietly, under strict confidentiality. Detectives started by examining Aarav's financial records in detail, looking for patterns that might explain motive. At first glance, there were routine bills and payments, but the insurance payouts raised immediate concern. Multiple policies had been taken out in Nandini's name, all with Aarav as the beneficiary. The sums were substantial, enough to resolve his debts and improve his lifestyle overnight. This sudden financial gain painted a troubling picture. Investigators also dug into Aarav's internet history, a treasure trove of digital breadcrumbs. They found the late-night searches about accidents, crash reports, and insurance claims. Each search appeared calculated, with notes, bookmarks, and comparisons between different scenarios. While one or two searches could be dismissed as curiosity, the sheer volume and specificity revealed something darker. The pattern showed a mind planning meticulously, not a person simply worrying about safety. The repair shop visit from days before the crash became central to the investigation. Security footage from the shop captured Aarav entering and leaving alone, carrying items that were never part of standard vehicle service. Employees remembered nothing unusual at the time, but investigators could now place him at the scene of possible tampering. Combined with the data showing brake interference, the visit no longer seemed coincidental. Every step began aligning with a timeline of preparation. Detectives also revisited witness statements and local traffic camera footage. While the rain and darkness had masked many details initially, careful analysis revealed subtle clues. Light reflections, passing vehicle angles, and timing suggested that Nandini's car had behaved abnormally before impact. Forensic experts confirmed that the sequence of braking and steering did not match typical human reaction patterns. This was no longer a simple accident caused by weather or driver error. It had the hallmarks of orchestration. Aarav's behavior during the investigation was scrutinized as well. Interviews with neighbors, friends, and colleagues revealed a disturbing pattern. Many recalled how quickly he had moved on after the crash, how seamlessly he had restored his lifestyle, and how detached his grief seemed. No one suspected criminal intent at the time, but with the new evidence, these behaviors took on a different meaning. The investigators began piecing together a psychological profile, noting that his composure, planning, and detachment fit the emerging narrative. Every piece of evidence, the digital trail, financial gains, car tampering, and behavioral patterns converged to form a coherent story. It was no longer speculation or theory. It was a detailed timeline showing intention, preparation, and execution. Investigators were confident enough to move toward charges. Eventually, the case reached the point where an arrest was imminent. Aarav, who had believed he had outsmarted fate, was about to face consequences he never anticipated. The ordinary life he projected, the calm demeanor, and the appearance of innocence were illusions that would collapse under scrutiny. The investigation revealed that the crash had been planned with chilling precision, leaving no room for coincidence. What once seemed like a tragic accident was now recognized as a deliberate act, and the law was finally ready to respond. The arrest came quietly, without the drama Aarav might have imagined. Detectives arrived at his apartment early in the morning, presenting a warrant and explaining the charges. Aarav's calm demeanor remained, but beneath it, the tension was unmistakable. For the first time since the crash, he realized that the carefully constructed life he had built was unraveling. The illusion of control, so meticulously maintained, was gone in an instant. As Aarav was taken into custody, the investigation entered a new phase. Prosecutors reviewed the extensive evidence collected over months: the brake tampering, the traffic data, the insurance policies, the repair shop visit, and his internet searches. Each piece independently suggested planning, but together they formed a compelling narrative. Investigators also highlighted his sudden financial improvement and the rapidity with which he had moved on after Nandini's death. The timeline was precise, leaving little room for doubt. During the pretrial period, Aarav's life changed completely. He was isolated from the world he had navigated so skillfully before. Friends and colleagues who once admired his ambition now watched from a distance, unsure how to reconcile the man they knew with the one the evidence described. Media reports, careful to avoid speculation, hinted at the shocking betrayal within a seemingly normal immigrant family. The story captured attention because it challenged expectations. A devoted husband could, in fact, orchestrate the death of the person closest to him. Court proceedings began, and the evidence was presented systematically. Experts explained the brake interference in clear terms, showing how deliberate alterations could have caused the accident. Digital analysts demonstrated the extensive search history, highlighting the step-by-step research Aarav conducted in preparation. Financial experts outlined how the insurance policies benefited him and traced the sudden clearing of debts to the payouts. Each witness, document, and expert testimony added weight to the case. The courtroom atmosphere was tense. What had started as a tragic accident was now fully understood as a calculated act. Aarav, once confident in his ability to control perception, found that nothing could shield him from the convergence of evidence. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who allowed desperation to evolve into intent, and the jury listened closely, connecting the dots that had been hidden for so long. As the trial progressed, it became clear that this was not only about the mechanics of the crime, but also about the betrayal of trust. Nandini had relied entirely on her husband, believing in his honesty and intentions. Her life had been taken by someone she loved, someone who had turned private planning into a public tragedy. This element of personal violation resonated deeply with everyone following the case. Finally, the verdict was delivered. Aarav was found guilty of orchestrating Nandini's death. The judge described the crime as deliberate, calculated, and morally reprehensible, emphasizing the betrayal at its core. Sentencing ensured that justice, long delayed, would be served. The case became a cautionary tale, remembered not just for the method of the crime, but for the quiet, almost invisible steps that allowed it to happen. A husband's betrayal, hidden behind a facade of normalcy and trust, had led to a life-ending tragedy. What began as a dream of a new life in America ended as a stark reminder that appearances can deceive, and sometimes the most dangerous actions occur behind the most ordinary faces.